spellbound. Wow, spellbound. You know I'm spellbound, around in circles like a clown. I crawl home to you, baby, like a gopher to his own. I can't be left out in the cold. You know I love you, and that I can't know I'm here. Yes, I'm here. You don't want me, 'cause I'm raggedy and dead. Let me tell you, I'm here for you. I've been raggedy for such a long, long time. And you know, it's blowing my mind. Listen up, babe, don't you understand? I'm raggedy and dirty, but I'll be your loving man. I've been raggedy. when your best friend turn their back on you. You gotta rob and steal. Don't find what to do. Oh, Lord, it makes me feel so bad when my poor children cry for bread. Lord, it makes me feel so bad when my poor children cry for bread. Sometime it make me wonder if a poor man ain't better off dead. Yeah!
Gill. I am the chair of the Citizen Review Board. At this time, the Tuesday, October 26, 2021 meeting, the Citizen Review Board is now called to order. If you will, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Secretary, please conduct the roll call.
Banks.
Present.
Collins.
Present.
Simmons. Tamayo.
Present.
Reyes.
Present.
Guy. Akil.
Present.
Gendella. Irvin. And Valdez.
Present. Let the record show that all members of the Citizen Review Board are present with the exception of Ms. Irene Guy, Devin Ingadella, Stephen Blair, and Demetrius Simmons. At this time, I would ask our acting vice chair, in the absence of our vice chair, Irene Guy, Lincoln Tamayo, to continue to read the meeting guideline.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This meeting is being conducted at the Old City Hall, 315 East Kennedy Avenue, with safety measures and social distancing between the members of the board. This meeting is being live streamed to a larger room here at Old City Hall. This meeting has been noticed by posting on TPD website, postings at Old City Hall, and on the city electronic calendar. This meeting is being conducted live with an in-person quorum present, with the option of participation through in-person kiosks, voicemail, or mail. The public and citizens of the City of Tampa will be able to watch, listen, or view this meeting by cable TV, internet, or by in-person live stream here at Old City Hall. All written or voicemail comments must have been received no later than 24 hours prior to the meeting in order to be made part of the official record of the meeting. Written comments may not exceed 400 words, and live and voicemail comments may not exceed 3 minutes in length. Recorded and live public comment will be heard at the start of the meeting. Voicemail comments will be played during the public comment section of the meeting and become part of the permanent record of the meeting. Written comments will be distributed to the board and will also be included in the permanent record of the meeting. All public comments timely received will be afforded equal consideration as if the public comments were made in person. Please silence all electronic devices. The duties and responsibilities of the Citizen Review Board are to: 1, review completed department investigations involving use of force and cases of importance and interest to the community or the city. 2, determine whether the disposition of reviewed cases was consistent with department policies and procedures. 3, review matters of importance or interest and make recommendations regarding the handling of these matters. 4, determine whether any revisions or additions to department policy and procedures are appropriate in reviewing matters of or importance and interest. And 5, report findings and recommendations to the mayor and chief of police. Cases that are brought before the Citizens Review Board are closed internal affairs cases that have been investigated and brought to the police chief for disposition. It is the Citizen Review Board's job to review the cases and render an opinion as to whether the investigation was done according to department policies and procedures. The Citizens Review Board members are provided the investigative files in advance of the meeting. The Citizens Review Board will hear from the department whenever matters of interest or importance are requested for review by the board or the department. As will be further discussed by the chair, members of the public will have an opportunity to address the Citizens Review Board during the public comment portion of the meeting. The coordinator for the board is Captain Kevin Schoolmeesters. Any person who wishes to make a complaint concerning a matter which may be considered by the Professional Standards Bureau should see Captain Schoolmeesters for the information on how to file a complaint. The chair is responsible for maintaining an appropriate, business-like decorum during the meeting. The board should not discuss matters where the city or the department may likely be a party in litigation. The public comment portion of the meeting is coming up early on this agenda, so if you wish to speak, please line up at the kiosk now so you can be called in order. Please maintain social distancing and wear your mask. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Tamayo. We'll continue with the agenda under item D, approval of the minutes from the meeting of September 21st, 2021. Are there any questions or provisions? Hearing none, I will need a motion and a second to approve the minutes.
Make a motion that the minutes of the September board meeting be received and
Second.
Board member Dr. Carolyn Collins made a motion to approve the minutes of Tuesday, September 21st of 2021. Reverend Banks has seconded the motion of approval of the minutes for the Tuesday, September 21st, 2021 meeting. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll now continue with the vote. All in favor, please show by raise of hand. Any opposed? Say nay. The motion passes. Thank you.
I was told that. You know what you're doing.
We'll now continue with the agenda under item E, the public comment portion of the meeting, of the agenda. As I call the names of the participants that signed up for public comment, I would ask that you approach the podium, state your name and address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Are there any other public comments?
Do we have a sign-up sheet?
Here, comes Mr. Speaker.
Okay, go ahead and continue. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. I'm Tasia Stagg, address 2905 East Okara Road, Tampa, Florida. I moved to the Laurel Terrace neighborhood of North Tampa to be near campus while attending medical school at USF. I'm board certified in a specialty called Public Health and General Preventive Medicine. I further trained in healthcare quality and patient safety. I'm single and live alone. For about 2 years, I've been the victim of bullying by the family next door. When I say bullying, I mean harassment, stalking, and defamation. I fear for my safety because of that family's behavior, and now because of the conduct of Tampa police of every rank I've encountered, which is up to captain. At the last meeting, after I begged for help and told you about the mismanagement of complaints from August 3rd and August 11th, from police visits of January 30th and March 10th, Captain Schoolmeesters misled you by sharing his perspective about my June 12th complaint about an unnecessary June 11th police visit. We can revisit that case too, but the ones I most desperately needed help with and he succeeded in postponing progress on are my complaints submitted August 11th and August 3rd from police misconduct on January 30th and March 10th. Among other problems on those dates, officers destroyed exculpatory evidence, lied to me and about me, and filed false charges, so I spent most of this year failing background checks and facing worse than ever harassment by the monsters next door. I don't believe these officers' failure to understand one complaint gives them a valid excuse for failing to investigate another two. I don't ask for help that I don't need. In addition to the two uninvestigated complaints I mentioned at last month's meeting, there are now 2 other complaints that were mishandled. The third was not investigated, and for the fourth, an investigation was opened and inappropriately closed. One of these was about the second false police report filed against me that resulted in one of 2 criminal cases that were dropped 2 weeks ago today. The other one is about police trespassing onto my property, which happened again 2 days ago. I am not a willing victim of these costly abuses. Please help.
Thank you. Are there any other participants for the public comment portion of this agenda? Are there any recorded comments received through the voicemail setup for this meeting?
Mike Schmidt, no, there were no recorded comments received.
Clerk, have we received any written comments?
No, sir, we did not receive any written comments.
That would conclude the public comment portion of our meeting. As a follow-up to our last meeting in reference to public comment, board members raised concerns in reference to engaging and participants that participate in the public comment portion. We are working on various options to add a segment in the agenda where we'd be able to engage in dialogue from the public comment portion. So it did not go unheard, and I am working with Ms. Kamaria and trying to add that into the agenda. However, if you do wish to speak in reference to the public comment tonight, please do so under item H, CRB staff reports and business. We'll now continue with the agenda under item F, review and investigation. Tonight we will be reviewing 2 cases. First case is number 21F-005. MOR number 1107, truthfulness in department matters. MOR number 1012, sexual activity on duty. MOR number 1204.04, attendance to duty. MOR 1504, secure storage of firearm. MOR number 1813, cooperation with Department Investigation. If you will, please
Good
continue.
evening, Captain Schoolmeesters, Tampa Police Department. Tonight we're going to do things a little bit differently. During the past meeting, Chief Delgado spoke of having the captain who wrote the disposition letter here, which they are here tonight for both cases.
Right.
The Internal Affairs Detective is going to present the facts of the case, and then the captains will be here to answer any questions you may have.
Great.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the board. On 4/2/2021, a female friend of Officer Todd Magarosi was arrested for introducing illegal narcotics into a correctional facility. This female friend was a NAFCARE contract employee who worked for the Hillsborough County Jail on Orient Road. The investigation conducted by the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office found that Officer Magarosi was potentially supplying the female with prescription medication.
Excuse me, sir, if you will, I hate to interrupt, but
Yes.
can you repeat your name and titleship for the record, please?
Sorry about that. It's Detective Jason DeGagny with Professional Standards Internal Affairs Bureau. I do apologize about that.
Thank you.
I digress. It should be noted that the HCSO detectives found no evidence linking Officer Magarosi to any of the drugs being taken into the jail by the female. The HCSO legally seized 1,533 pages of text messages between Officer Magarosi and the female dating back to 9/28/2019 that would later be used as evidence in Officer Magarosi's administrative investigation. Some of the text messages were of sexual nature and showed evidence of a developing close, intimate relationship. On 4/10/2021, Officer Magarosi was placed on administrative leave and relieved of duty. When the Tampa Police Department personnel arrived at his home to collect his firearm, it was discovered that his departmental issued firearm, as well as other personal owned firearms, were left unsecured in a safe. His minor child was the only person in the home at the time and had access to those weapons. A criminal investigation was conducted on Officer Magarosi by detectives with the Criminal Intelligence Bureau regarding possibly supplying this female friend with prescription drugs. An interview was conducted with the female, and she advised Officer Magarosi did supply her with the prescription drug on a few occasions. Apparently, they both had prescriptions for the exact same medication. Additionally, she advised her and Officer Magarosi were involved in an intimate physical relationship, and she gave indications that they engaged in sexual activity while he was on duty. Officer Magarosi was interviewed by detectives but denied any wrongdoing. Officer Magarosi in turn minimized the relationship with the female. There was insufficient evidence to meet a threshold for a probable cause arrest. The female friend was later interviewed by Internal Affairs and provided a sworn statement outlining an array of sexual encounters that occurred while Officer Magarosi was on duty. The Internal Affairs investigation found Officer Magarosi turned off his body-worn camera during these encounters that he had had with the female. He used his marked patrol car to drive to her home, which was outside of the assigned area. He logged himself off at different locations while being at the female's home. And he conducted a registration check for the female using a secured police database. On 5/9/2021, Officer Magarosi and his union representative responded into the Internal Affairs Bureau and reviewed the evidence against him. After reviewing the evidence, Officer Magarosi declined to give an interview to Internal Affairs and in turn resigned as a Tampa police officer. The findings of this investigation were reported to the Criminal Justice Standards and Training Commission for review, as sex on duty is just one of many violations in which you can get your law enforcement certification revoked. In conclusion, all of the violations that you listed, Mr. Chair, were sustained with the exception of the alcohol consumption and drug use. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tamayo?
Captain, the detective had indicated earlier that, that the officer had been relieved of duty. I just want to state for the record that the officer resigned. He was not relieved of duty, correct?
Captain Brian Hill, Tampa PD. Yeah, no, prior to him leaving the agency, he was relieved of duty.
Oh, he was relieved of duty, okay.
Correct, prior to him terminating his employment with the city.
Mr. Tamayo,
I-
during, I'm sorry,
just-
during a administrative investigation, that officer, he was placed on administrative leave.
Right.
Pending this investigation. And then once he was brought in for questioning, he decided to resign after seeing me. So it was a month or two, the investigation, while he was on administrative leave. He was on light duty at the desk, so he was at
Right,
work.
right, but he had been relieved of his normal duty.
Correct, sir, sorry.
On administrative leave, but when you say relieved of duty, that implies some kind of a termination.
His
So he was
firearm-
not, right, his firearm was taken,
Yes,
but just what, so he did end up resigning.
correct.
Okay, very good. Thank you for the clarification. Captain, can you surmise as to why the state attorney would not have prosecuted the the dispensing of Adderall from a police officer to, that there's really no way that we, you know, from the law enforcement end can surmise why the state attorney's office did not prosecute.
Sorry, Mike Schmidt with the City Attorney's Office, and I formerly with the State Attorney's Office for many years, and I can tell you that while I don't believe there is a case law requirement that the narcotics be available for testing and all that, but you got to understand the State Attorney's Office is going to have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the prescriptions, medication that was supposedly given was actually a controlled substance. There was no controlled substance to be sent to FDLE. There was no controlled substance to be tested, no controlled substance to be presented to a jury. So it was all based on what they say happened, what the girl said happened. And so therefore you just had testimony of a potential witness, but we didn't have any actual evidence in this case.
But what the officer had also said he
Physical
had done.
evidence, I should say.
Right, there was no physical evidence, but the
Right.
officer also did say that he had handed on at least 3 occasions the 10 milligrams of Adderall to the woman.
Correct, and I'm not sure if that, but yes, yes, he did say that, and I'm not sure if that was in his criminal investigation post Miranda, and if that was still going to be enough for the state to feel beyond a reasonable doubt they could have prosecuted the case. It's common for the state to decline cases where there are no narcotics, no physical
No
evidence
physical
for
evidence
them.
of it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
If you will,
if I,
Darrell Reyes.
thank you, Mr. Chair. If we could just kind of follow up on that, because I had the same kind of question on that. Looking at the report, the officer said that he was unaware of the legality of providing the controlled substance. So he already admitted to giving it, and then he said, well, I was unaware of the legality of it, of doing that. So I guess that doesn't square. I'm just trying to understand. I guess it goes back to what Mr. Tamayo was saying is, I understand the probable cause and the threshold and all of that, but there's more to this, I guess, and I'm not sure if you can answer it, but it just seemed like there was a gap there of logic.
I can't answer the gap in logic of the officer now, but I understand what you're saying, but I don't know that I can answer what he was thinking.
Okay, well, and then so when I read on the next page, it said, and maybe this is related or maybe not, and you can clarify this for me. A violation of MOR 1001.3, alcohol consumption and drug use is not sustained. What is that referring to? What's that specifically referring to?
So there was no evidence found that he either consumed any alcohol on duty. He did admit to taking his medication on duty, which is not against policy, because it was prescribed to him.
But Captain, so he did not consume, but is there any MOR that pertains to providing controlled substances to someone else?
MOR, no.
There's no MOR, so, the officer in question here, he's not a licensed physician, correct?
Correct.
He is not a licensed pharmacist, so he cannot prescribe medication. He cannot, as a pharmacist, dispense medication.
Correct.
And he does not have the authority, like, for example, a school official has the authority with a prescribed medication to provide to, say, a child, a student. This officer didn't have any kind of authority like that to dispense and to provide medication to someone else?
He did not, no.
So if there isn't an MOR, there should be an MOR that deals with those kinds of cases where officers are dispensing and providing controlled substances and actually admitting to providing controlled substances to and even while on duty.
Right. It wouldn't fall under that MOR that we have here, but it would fall under conformance of laws. So basically, what he did was illegal, so it falls up under that category, conformance of laws.
And because even without physical evidence, when an officer is admitting on at least 3 occasions of providing a controlled substance to someone while on duty, I'll leave it at that. That's a serious, I mean, we cannot possibly have the color and the question and the concern of officers dispensing this kind of stuff while on duty. And this is precisely the kind of case where we ought to shed a really clear light on it and say that we've just not, and obviously the way the TPD responded to this is that we will not tolerate it. But this is the kind of thing that needs to be much more light shed on it. I'm just really concerned that there's no MOR that deals with this kind of
So the MOR exists, but it doesn't exist to that verbiage. So I'll read to you conformance of law. It's
Okay.
MOR 1007. It's a department employee shall obey all laws of the United States and the state of Florida and the ordinances in Hillsborough County and the city of Tampa. An employee may be subject to suspension or termination in accordance with city policy for the violation of any law, whether or not an indictment or information has been filed by the state attorney's office. Such suspension may be with or without pay as determined in accordance with the collective bargaining agreement, if applicable. Department of policy, and an employee's right to due process. So it is covered in that one, but it's just not say, hey, given this.
And
pill.
Captain, the TPD went after this officer hammer and tong. Can we assume that if the officer had not resigned, that with 8 of these 9 MORs being sustained, that it was extremely likely, if not certain, that he would have been terminated?
I can't speak for retired Chief Dugan, but I will possibly say that yes, he will have faced termination.
Thank you.
Because some of the allegations that were sustained, he would have lost his certification anyway.
Thank you, Captain.
And ladies and gentlemen of the board, I just want to say, this definitely is an isolated incident. This is an anomaly. I mean, I've never come across anything like this. I was shocked just as much as you guys were. So again, this is not a common practice at all.
And I'm not suggesting at all, I completely agree with you that I see this as an anomaly, but this is the kind of thing that we should shed a lot of light on and say, look, when this kind of thing happens, we're going right after it. We're going right after it, and it's not going to be tolerated. And, I don't know how many people watch this, but, this is the kind of thing that TPD, I think, should really trumpet.
I totally agree, especially being supported by an admission statement. I think that's grounds enough with the entire investigation, enough, in my opinion, for a prosecution, at least minimal, just to show that this type of behavior is not tolerated. But again, the officer is no longer with us.
I will have a question or clarity. Will his credentials be revoked in lieu of the incident, or can he go and apply at any other department and become an officer?
I'm not sure.
We're still awaiting verification from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, Criminal Justice Standards and Training Commission. They're the ones that make that decision. I just don't have that decision just yet.
Can we be provided an update once we have a?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Great point, Mr. Valdez. Dr. Collins?
Yeah, my question, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. My question is the 1007 that you made reference to,
Yes, ma'am.
performance of law, is it, and when you were reading it, I heard in there because the state attorney did not do. Is that why this particular MOR was not added? To cover that, because you guys did a great job of sustaining everything. That was the only thing was not sustained. I can see not sustaining the alcohol consumption, but the drug use, he didn't use drugs that was illegal because it was his prescription, prescribed medication, but it was the drug use of someone else that he gave it to. So I'm just curious, since the questions have already been asked, why not that MOR have not been added? And conceivably, before we approve this, could we recommend it be added?
Yeah, the only one that shouldn't have been sustained was the consumption of alcohol or drugs, but I'm not sure why it's not showing up, but it was sustained conformance of laws because it's clear as day what he did was it was illegal.
Okay, so the first one that's listed here, the 1001.3, alcohol consumption and drug use, that was not sustained, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Could the other one that you quoted, the 1007, have been listed and been sustained?
Correct.
Is it,
I'm sorry, did I misunderstand the question?
did I ask?
Was
you-
1007 one of the MORs in this case, or no?
Yes, it was
Oh,
sustained.
it was,
one-
it's just not included here.
Correct.
Got it, okay.
Yeah, it was clerical issue, clerical mistake. Yes, it was.
So, okay, so we can indicate that that was here?
Yes, that-
That
yes.
was what my question was, okay. So this was included.
And Captain, I'm sorry, what is the title of 1007?
Conformance. to law.
Conformance of law, okay, thank you.
Is it conformance to law, not performance?
Conformance to.
Conformance to, okay.
So basically, the 1007, that's pretty much like a catch-all,
Correct.
except it doesn't rise to the standard of criminal prosecution.
Well, that has nothing to, we don't handle that portion of it. That would be a question for the state attorney to answer, not us.
Understand, okay, thanks.
Any other questions or comments in reference to this particular case?
Just for correction purposes, that will be added into it since it was clerically left out.
Yes, ma'am.
The MOR number 1007,
Okay.
which was sustained.
Yes.
Thank you.
Chair is open to a motion on whether we concur or not concur or unable to reach determination that the disposition, investigation, and its findings were consistent with department policy and procedures. The question before the board is whether we concur or not concur or unable to reach determination. Chair is open to a motion.
I make a motion that the board concur with the addition of the MOR 1007 being sustained.
I second.
Dr. Carolyn Collins had made a motion that we concur with the deposition and the investigation and its findings with the item of MOR number 1007 as well being sustained. Darrell Reyes has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we will continue with the vote. All in favor specify by show of hand. All opposed specify by show of hand. The motion passes. Thank you. We'll now continue with the second case of the agenda, case number 21F-009 of MOR number 1006, Association, and also MOR number 1005, Standard of Conduct, and MOR 1208, Insubordination. And this officer was terminated. The investigation began on July 19th of 2021. If you will.
Good evening, I'm Corporal Katie Thanasis with Internal Affairs and Professional Standards. Officer Fertig became involved in a romantic relationship with a convicted felon to whom she is currently engaged. Officer Fertig was aware of the individual's status as a convicted felon prior to their engagement, and Officer Fertig utilized a secure police database to conduct a query on him for personal use. When Officer Fertig was ordered to cease her relationship with this individual, she refused. Officer Fertig was found to be in violation of 4 Tampa Police Department policies. On July 19th, 2021, Officer Fertig's immediate supervisor learned that Officer Fertig was engaged to be married and that her fiance is a convicted felon. The supervisor confirmed the information she was provided and that Officer Fertig was aware of the department's policy prohibiting association with convicted felons. The matter was turned over to Internal Affairs for investigation. On July 22nd, 2021, Officer Fertig was served a cease and desist notice. Officer Fertig indicated she would not comply with the order. Officer Fertig's fiance is currently on felony probation for attempted first-degree murder, discharging a firearm from a vehicle, and throwing a deadly missile. Internal Affairs detectives conducted interviews with Officer Fertig's coworkers. Her coworkers confirmed they spoke with Officer Fertig about her fiance's status as a convicted felon, and more specifically about his violent past, expressing concerns for her safety. Additionally, they reminded her of the department's policy prohibiting association with convicted felons. They believed Officer Fertig brought her fiancé to the Rich House, but they were not sure. On 4/7/2021, Officer Furtick utilized a secure police database to query her fiancé for personal reasons. Not only is this against policy, it confirmed her knowledge of her fiancé's status as a convicted felon on probation. During questioning, Officer Furtick again confirmed her knowledge of her fiancé's status as a convicted felon. The violent acts leading to his arrest and subsequent conviction were discussed at length. She admitted to utilizing a secure police database to conduct a query for personal reasons and allowing her fiancé to visit her at the Rich House. Officer Furtick stated her fiancé has traveled to Tampa to visit her on 4 occasions, and she did not appear concerned when detectives advised her that he only received permission from his probation officer on 2 of those occasions. Officer Furtick advised she would not comply with department policy and would rather end her career than her relationship. After review of the documentation, Officer Furtick was found to be in violation of MOR 1005 Standard of Conduct, MOR 1006 Association, MOR 1208 Insubordination, and MOR 1402 Department Property Restriction of Use. Officer Furtick was terminated from TPD effective August 10th, 2021. And Captain Mesmer is here if you have any questions about the disposition.
Thank you. Mr. Tamayo?
Captain, at the risk of asking a rhetorical question, but for the edification of our fellow citizens, could you just state on behalf of the Tampa Police Department why it's strictly prohibited for a law enforcement officer to associate with a convicted felon?
Sure, and again, Captain Patrick Mesmer, District 2. So this is just a premise of law enforcement as the profession has become professional and gone through a lot of phases over the years. One of the big things that contributes to corruption is when law enforcement and criminals associate together. A lot of instances, specifically when organized crimes have been involved, what we found is that the officers are in bed with the criminals. Even more recently out in Los Angeles, the Rampart scandal, that was gangs had infiltrated the police department. The officers were associating with the gang members. And even, in Tampa, several years ago, we had a couple officers who were actually convicted in federal court of some federal crimes involving tax fraud. And it came to light that the person who was providing those proceeds of the tax fraud to them was a convicted felon who they were associated with. So we really need to separate law enforcement from the convicted felons as much as possible. And the MOR is verbiage is it prohibits regular and continuous association. So we understand that you can't choose your family. You can definitely choose who you date, who you marry. If somebody has a felon, in their distant family, and they get together for Christmas and they don't see him, that's normally not something that the department really has a hard stance on. But in this kind of a situation where we made her aware of the policy and says, you need to come into compliance with this policy or else you're going to lose your job, and then she says, well, I'd rather lose my job than end my relationship. Unfortunately, in this situation, there's really not much more we can do than terminate her employment.
Thank you, Captain.
Thank you for that clarification. If you will, Dr. Collins.
I think I have 2 questions, but one is, how long has Officer Furtick been with the department?
I believe, about 5 years.
Okay. And I'm just gonna say, because I'm sure somebody's saying 5 years, and probably was not aware of that particular, and it appears he came from out of county to come here to visit her a couple of times without getting what he needed. And so over a 5-year period of time, she was not aware of that. And the reason I asked that question, that's kind of significant because now that we're involved with the interviewing board and the hearing board, some of the things that I think we are ultimately going to be responsible for, and I did not make any comments last month because I still have some concerns because they're still working things out. But that's going to be, that kind of thing is very significant when we begin to look at the individuals that are being hired.
So just to confirm on that, she's been with the department for 5 years, so this was a very unusual situation. They actually had just met. They had only known each other for a few months, and then she became engaged to him. So she was not in a relationship with him for a very long period of time, not for 5 years.
That's what I was saying. She jeopardized her for 5 years. Okay. That was my biggest question. Because she did the right thing. She
Did she volunteer this information, or this was red flags that presented an investigation?
So one of her squad mates actually became aware of it, and that is who brought it to the supervisor, and it was escalated to us. So she became aware of it. She had a discussion with somebody she works with who told her, look, you can't be doing this, and she basically told that officer, well, I don't care, I'm going to do it anyway. And then that officer, when she found out that Officer Fertig wasn't going to comply with the policy, she immediately brought it to her supervisor and escalated it to us.
We don't know at the time of the initial relationship that she was aware that he was a convicted felon or on probation.
So my understanding from the interview and from speaking with her, they met online, and very quickly in their meeting, she made a disclosure to him that he had a significant criminal record. And around that time, I believe, is when she conducted the computer check to find out exactly what he was on probation for. So yes, if I recall correctly from the interview, she did admit that she knew very soon into their relationship or their talking that he did have a criminal background.
What would be the correct protocol for an officer who wanted to engage into a relationship but wasn't sure of the background of that individual and didn't want to jeopardize their career? What would be the correct protocol to finding out such information before moving forward in such a relationship?
In this individual's case, everything in his background, his probation status, his inmate release status, it would have all been available on the public Florida Department of Corrections website. So she would not have even needed to use her law enforcement access to do that. But you know, for convicted felons who either are on probation or have been in prison, the Florida Department of Corrections website does have a public portal that you can look for things like that. Now, if it was somebody from out of state and you know they really have no clue and they're trying to hide the background investigation other than going and trying to pay for a background investigation, you know, through LexisNexis or some other sort of organization, there would really be no way to find that out.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Just out of curiosity,
Reverend Banks?
what would be the protocol if you're already married and your spouse committed a felony and was convicted? Would that require them to be terminated?
I don't believe so. I don't know if we've ever had anything like that, but
We have one officer who married someone with a felony conviction about 20 years ago. It was not a violent felony, and the department obviously took that into consideration, and she is an officer with us.
Okay.
Any further questions or statements or comments?
I appreciate this case being pulled as well, but I also appreciate you letting us know and letting the community that may be out there and have these kind of questions know where they can go and look this kind of information up. There's a whole lot of folks who know how to go online and look up everything on everybody. There are some they don't even have an inkling of an idea, and so this is good to know that they know that they can go to the Florida Department of Corrections and find this if it occurred in Florida.
Thank you. So the chair is open to a motion, whether we concur or not concur or unable to reach a determination in reference to the findings, deposition, and investigation in this particular case. And is it consistent with department policy and procedures?
I move to concur with the sustaining of the violations of all three MORs in this case.
Board member Lincoln Tamayo.
Sorry, 4.
Has concur with the deposition and investigation and its findings were consistent with department policies and procedures. Do I have a second?
Second.
Reverend Banks has seconded the motion in reference that we do concur that the determination and deposition and investigation of his findings were consistent with department policies and procedures. We'll now continue any further discussion. We'll now continue with the vote. All those in favor, please show by a raise of hand. Any opposed, say nay. That motion passes. And again, I selected these two particular cases for this month because I felt that both cases shared some similarities in reference to offenses. And I want to give law enforcement the opportunity to share how does relationships work within the force and things of that nature. When reviewing this case, I kept thinking about the West Side Story or Beauty and the Beast, and sometimes you can't put a container on love. So I just want to know what was the integrity, what was the policy, and things of that nature, and the parameters of a particular case like this. So thank you for your input. We'll now continue with the agenda, moving to item G, Community and Tampa Police Department matters. Mike Schmidt.
Good evening. Mike Schmidt with the City Attorney's Office. I'm standing in for Kamaria Pettis-Mackel, who had an emergency she had to go deal with last minute. She apologizes that she could not be here. However, she was nice enough to provide us with a PowerPoint presentation for tonight's meeting, so I will go through the slides and also answer any questions for you.
Mr. Smith, Board Member Reyes wasn't present last month. Do we have a binder for him?
We are going to send that to him.
Okay.
We will provide that. All right. Tonight we're going to discuss about the Citizen Review Board duties, responsibility, and authority under the new ordinance, which, as you're all aware, passed several months ago through City Council. I know we've discussed many of these before, but there's a couple of new members, and I think this would be good for the new members to hear, as well as make sure we're all on the same page and understand what the changes were in the ordinance and what the new duties and responsibilities and authority for this board will be going forward. First, the ordinance passed on June 7, 2021. It was ordinance number 2180. The provisions of the ordinance will go into effect 6 months after becoming law. And what is important about that is that would be December 7th, 2021. Let's pause there for a second. I'm not. Well, all right. So that's. Anyway, presumably December 7th, 2021. I only pause there because I'm not. My recollection was it was a little bit later in December that it actually goes in effect, but either way, for this board's purposes, I don't think that's going to matter. Essentially, these will take effect the first meeting in January when you meet, or if we decide to meet in later December, these may already take effect. We'll make sure we cover that with you. All right, so I would like to explain a little bit the old purpose of the Citizen Review Board before the amendments under duties and responsibility stated that your duties and responsibility currently, until this ordinance takes effect, are to review completed internal department investigations involving use of force in cases and issues of importance of interest to the community or the city. And essentially, it's a one-sentence description in the current ordinance. And there's a couple other details, but the new ordinance went into more detail about what your duties are. So your duties now under the new ordinance are to review closed internal investigations that have concluded that there is a violation of department policy occurred and that discipline consisting of suspension, demotion, or termination has been imposed, no discipline was imposed, or discipline other than suspension, demotion, or termination was imposed. So It also, well, let's keep talking about closed investigation where discipline was imposed. This falls under 18.8G1, and the decision as CRB shall be advisory to the chief of police. Upon review of the investigation and by majority vote, the CRB may render one of the following recommendations regarding the disposition of the investigation and discipline imposed, based on a preponderance of the evidence. You can concur that the board agrees with the proposed determination regarding the disposition of the complaint and the discipline. You do not concur, the board does not agree with the disposition of the complaint and discipline, or you're unable to reach a decision. The board shall state with specificity the reasons related thereto. In addition, within 30 days from the conclusion of the CRB's review, the CRB shall forward its written findings and recommendations to the chief of police and the affected officer. Now, under the current ordinance, essentially there are 3 investigations this board can review. One, as we just discussed, was review of closed investigation where certain discipline was imposed. Another is review of completed cases. And the third is matters of importance or interest. So the second one.
Smith, are we supposed to have a copy of that, or is that you just?
This is the ordinance. I was just showing the
I mean, the
PowerPoint. We'll email it to
PowerPoint.
you. Sure.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
I kept looking for it, because I just want to make sure.
Oh, I apologize. We'll send an email to you with these slides. And I know previously you had the ordinance, so
That's
this
fine.
is
I just
essentially
want to make
just
sure I have what you were.
But yes, I will absolutely send you the PowerPoints as well. And that'll be true for all our trainings that we provide you. We'll make sure you get those.
Okay, thank you.
So the second procedure is review of completed cases. That's to review completed internal department investigations involving use of force in cases and issues of importance or interest to the community of the city. So under 18A G5, it provides that. The CRB will review the investigations once they're complete. They'll determine whether the investigation and disposition of the case was consistent with the department's manual of regulations and standard operating procedure, and they may issue findings and make recommendations to the chief of police. So, again, we've talked about closed investigations where discipline was imposed, and then use of force investigations. So then the third thing that this board can consider is matters of importance or interest to the community or the city. That's under 18.8 G6. The CRB may make written recommendations regarding the department's handling of an issue, revisions, or additions to department policy and procedure. The chief of police must respond within 30 days. Findings and other recommendations. Under 18.8 G7, it provides that any recommendations regarding the department shall be provided in writing to City Council and shall be included in the CRB's annual report. So that's to remind you that now, going forward, one of the things, besides just providing the annual report that we normally do, that the chair is going to be required to present before City Council and I believe any other board members who wish to appear. Now, I would also add here that since we are talking about your duties and responsibilities, we have trained and discussed other responsibilities that have been added to this board that aren't necessarily in this PowerPoint, but I know we've talked about them in the past. That is participation in the hiring procedure that I know Dr. Collins has participated in that. So that was a new duty that was added into the ordinance. There's also the complaint filing and tracking system. That was intended to allow this board to be informed of the filing of complaints concerning allegations of police officer misconduct and to monitor and track the status of the complaints from inception to completion and to allow for such complaints to be filed directly with the CRB. In addition, there was the CRB community survey. That is something that was added in the ordinance. That's to conduct a community survey every 2 years to obtain public feedback regarding the department and its policies and procedures. That's something that we intend to work with this board going forward and making sure we figure out how we're going to initiate these surveys. Luckily, we have 2 years to figure that out. And obviously, we know the board has done surveys in the past, so we've heard from Dr., I believe Brianna Fox came and presented to you, and she explained that if we decide to go with USF, that might be something she's able to assist this board with. So I know that was one idea. The board's already started looking into this idea and considering how it can do a survey in the future. I imagine we'll probably have some workshop in the future to discuss the survey. So that'll be something that this board's going to have to tackle in the future. And I think that covers the majority of what this board's role is going forward. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
If you will, Mr. Irvin. Yes, sir. Just as a statement in reference to the survey, I'm pretty excited in getting the survey orchestrated. It was a great tool during that year, and we selected numerous cases and created an agenda based off that survey. So I'm looking forward to that survey also being utilized as a tool to assist with the agenda moving forward. Any other questions or comments, Mr. Smith?
The next to the last slide, I think that you just went to before the survey, it might have been tracking. And it's the one where if we find something and we send that to the police chief and then we get a response. I can't remember the days. Early on it was a response, but we said we'll get a response in 30 days after chief of police must respond. That's it. Matters of community interest. If we were in that phase now, and I'm just using this as an example. Last month we dealt with I got it on my agenda to ask about it today. The last month we dealt with the housing. We dealt with the housing issue. Yeah, the multi-housing program, the crime-free multi-housing program. Would that put a hindrance on the board for monitoring purposes because we found in tracking, or would we be able to waive that 30 days if we had asked for some input to come back and it put a hindrance on TPD to try to respond in 30 days when it may take longer? So even though it say must respond in 30 days, if we wanted to extend that, if they came back in 30 days and said we're still working on it, that would be okay.
Yes, I think that would be fine.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments in reference to the training session for Mike Smith?
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. We'll now continue with the agenda under item H, CRB staff reports and business. Any new business?
I do.
How are we with the new members in reference to them receiving the necessary academy presence?
Great question. We do have a training scheduled in December, and are you able to attend, Mr.? All right.
Yeah, I'm able to attend and have registered for the training.
Fantastic, and hopefully Mr. Urban is as well. I know. So, anyways, as far as I know, everybody should be fully trained by the time we get into January.
Right.
If we've also, I don't know about the ride-alongs, so if you haven't.
That hasn't been scheduled yet.
All right, we still need to coordinate ride-alongs, but we have a couple of months, obviously, to get that done. So for anybody who has not done the ride-alongs on the new members, we'll make sure that gets done as well.
And the ride-along is supposed to be performed in each district?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's correct. And then, since you bring that up, I know what I was going to say. It's actually not quite the same matter, but the other thing we need to discuss is the future meetings. So, and I'm sure you're going to bring that up, obviously, but just a suggestion, I guess, if you don't mind. I know this board, because we've done this now for however many years, since 2013, right? So
16.
every time this time of year, we always face this dilemma. We've got Thanksgiving coming up, and we have Christmas coming up, holidays. So these two holidays fall right when this board would normally meet. So what we've normally done in the past is, if the board doesn't want to wait until January, it decides to move it to the first, do a sort of combined final one more meeting, and does it the first Tuesday in December. So if the board wants to consider that, that's usually how we rectify that issue.
Yes, and I reached out to staff of venue availability, and yes, we typically combine November and December. And that first Tuesday of December will be December 7th, and the venue will be available for that particular date at the same time at 6 o'clock. So we can open up a discussion and see how that works with everyone. And again, we will combine November meeting with December's meeting for the December 7th date. And I also believe that's also the date that the new ordinance also takes place.
We'll find out. We'll make sure we have a solid answer for you when you come back.
Okay.
Do we need a motion in reference to scheduling?
Are we
So
still
the chair is
still
open.
under H?
Yes, we're still under new business.
Okay, good, all right.
Announcements for the next meeting, moving into I on the agenda.
I want to stay under H because I have a question.
Okay. But chair is open to a motion in reference to having our next upcoming meeting, the combination of December and November, to take place on December 7th at 6 o'clock.
So moved, Mr. Chair, that we would do that.
You got a quorum?
A second.
Reverend Banks have made a motion in reference to combining December and November monthly meeting to be held on December 7th, which is the first Tuesday of the month. Darrell Reyes has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll continue with the vote. All those in favor, show by raise of hand. Any opposed, just say nay. That motion passes. The next meeting's to be held December 7th, 6 o'clock.
No November meeting.
Dr. Collins?
Yes,
We're still under the agenda under item H, number bullet point 2.
I just want for the record to make sure that we're still waiting on the update on the case that the chief had sent to us, 20F-148. They indicated as soon as that case was closed, they would bring it back. If it's closed, if they would bring it back. If it's not closed and will not be closed, it would be nice if they get some report. Because I keep bringing it up every month because I want to bring closure to it. It's almost like we get a response. So that's the one, 20F-148, and we did make a motion to have that one come back before us. I don't know where it is.
Please notate that in the minutes of that concern.
Yeah, and then,
We can stay abreast of that.
yeah, because it's about 2 months old now, and after a while I might forget to keep bringing it forward. I doubt it.
I think I remember correctly, that was potential litigation as well, that was supposed to be.
Right, and if it is still under litigation, we understand, but if it's not under litigation anymore, and if it's been resolved, then if we could be told that, because I heard it's not under litigation, so I don't know what's happening with it. Yeah. The second one would be last month's presentation that was very good on bringing us current on the crime-free housing plan. And we had asked for some input on whatever was going to happen with that, and that would come back. And I just wanted to make sure that we also note that that's another pending issue, that we're waiting to get the findings on whatever they found, whatever recommendations, if they're gonna keep the same procedures that they've been using, will anything be modified, and if so, will we be notified? And then my final things was the public comment that you said bring up under H.
Yes.
It's fine, I don't know if the individual that was here last month and this month, but I just want to make sure that when individuals come down and make comments before us and they think that we're not listening, that we are, and that there's a responsibility for them to file with the process that's in place. If they file, we can't respond to it anyway. So that's what I'm concerned, because, you know, I don't want people to come in, you know, everybody's under stress now, a whole lot of stuff going on with the pandemic. I don't want people coming before us thinking that we just letting them come and talk and not doing anything. And then they'll come back and say, well, we came to you guys and you guys didn't say anything. But that's the same lady who spoke today, even though I had her name spelled wrong because I can't understand what their names are. She was here last month. She was one of the individuals who spoke last month. And she's indicating that now there are additional cases. And my biggest concern when they're down there, or if that's where they're going to be speaking, do we have anything that we can put down so we can say to them, have you filed a complaint? Because that's the only way it's going to get back to us, because we've indicated if they file a complaint, then whenever it's closed, then bring it back to us. And I'm not too sure if she has filed a complaint, since she's saying she has them, or has she filed something that will come to us, so that once it is closed, there's closure to it, then it will come back.
Yes, I believe she did mention Captain Schoolmeister, so he may be able to address us. What's the status of that case? Is it open? Is it closed? Is it something that's reviewable at this point? And things of that nature, if you will, please.
The Captain Schoolmeister Professional Standards Bureau, yes, her case was looked into. The body camera footage was reviewed. Detective Thanasis was here earlier, conducted that. Most of the complaints that come in, especially through the Internal Affairs and Professional Standards Bureau, we look and we review it to see if it rises to a level as reasonable suspicion for a policy violation. If there's no policy violations, which vast majority of the complaints that come in are, then we enter it into our AIM system, which is the Administrative Incident Management Computer System. The detective will write in there, you know, I spoke to the complainant, this was the complaint, I looked into it, looked at the body-worn camera, looked at the report, and no policy violations were observed. Closed. Very little. With the Professional Standards Bureau, we investigate formal cases. Formal cases are cases that are designated by the Chief of Police for us to investigate, and there we do required by policy, such as police shootings, pursuits that result in serious injury or death, and others. So we looked into her complaint. You know, our status hasn't changed. We looked at it. Like I discussed before, is that the officers offered to remove, or to have our clean team, our city clean team, come out to her residence, remove the debris, which stemmed from the original complaint. She calls all the time, you know, and we discuss it with her, but, you know, there is no complaint. At a certain point, we have to make a stance to say that we looked at it, we looked into it, there is no complaint.
Is there an open case in reference to the accusation of being bullied by the neighbors?
No.
And the case that you're making reference to would be what she came and filed with you guys, but it wouldn't be one of those where we have, and I'm assuming that's still in progress, where people are having a concern or complaint, that they will file that complaint with the CRB board, and then you guys investigate it, and then you come back before us and say it's closed.
Yes, and then it should tell your findings of what we found during that complaint.
Okay.
And Captain Miss Stagg declined the assistance from the city cleanup
Yes.
team?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Captain.
Thank you, Mr. Chief.
We'll now continue with the agenda under item I, and announcing for the.
Chair, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Mike
I
Schmidt.
just want to come back up and clarify a couple of things, because, anyways, I did check into the PowerPoint, the date, because I didn't think December 7th was a correct date, and I see what happened. I believe when the PowerPoint was prepared and they looked at the ordinance, it faintly, it says June 17th, 2021. The 1 is faint on the stamp, so that's why I believed it to be later in December, which I'm correct, it is actually December 17th, it's not December 7th. I had always calculated, I knew the date was not until January, so when I saw the slide, I paused and I was wondering how that could have happened. So that's how it happened. It is December 17th, so your next meeting will not be controlled by the ordinance yet. So that was one clarification I wanted to make. And the second thing is, Dr. Collins, you brought up the crime-free, and I wanted to let you know that that is still actively being reviewed by, by the Tampa Police Department, by, the mayor's office, by the city attorney's office anyways. It's being reviewed, and there will be meetings as requested from city council. There will be meetings with all the stakeholders that city council requested, and those are coming here in the next several weeks. It's still being put together. So at this point, we didn't report it back to you tonight because it's still being finalized. However, I recognize now, as you brought that up, that the report to city council is December 2nd, and you're not having another meeting until December 7th. So unfortunately, city council is going to find out first, just so you're not surprised and you go, wait, why didn't we find out?
Yeah.
And the reason we're not here tonight to tell you is because it's still being finalized. But obviously by December 2nd, when we go before city council, when the chief goes before city council, I imagine this is all going to be pretty much finalized by then. So I didn't want the board to think that we were ignoring you and not bringing it back to you first. It's just that December 2nd comes before the next meeting of this board. But if you want, we can also provide a update to you on December 7th if you want that on the agenda.
I would say yes, because at least we can, some of the questions that we asked, what they were doing, how they were going to do it, if it was going to be modified. And it's fine if it goes before city council, at least we will know, whatever the changes were. So yes, sir, I would like to
Okay.
have an update.
We'll bring that back on December 7th then.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
As a matter of system, if we could conceivably include a listing of pending items that we're waiting for information on the agenda, and you can report status still pending or something, so that Dr. Collins don't have to rack her memory to try to remember what she asked for. But by the same token, it documents that you are responding up to whatever point we are, so you can just say still pending, and then it'll carry over automatically until such time as those things are finalized.
Yeah, and I think I think normally agendas have old business, and that might be something that would fall under something like an old business.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if it's
Just
documented on the agenda,
that makes sense.
those items, that way we don't have to try to remember
Keep them
what is
with
pending.
them.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. And then my last thing.
Continue,
Yeah, this,
Dr. Collins.
and my last one would be up under staff reports. Thanks to the staff when we went to do the hiring, the police hiring. But that was a first. It was a considerable amount of things there that they were still trying to work out. They were very kind enough to ask me what were some recommendations that I had based on what it was. When we first started talking about getting a list, I would encourage us to get that list of board members that's going to actually go through that hiring process. But I did say to them, because it wasn't set in stone, this was their first as well, there was a number of things that we felt we should kind of modify and change. I'm not too sure when this is going to happen again, but I would recommend that since it's still rough, I'm not asking to go back before the next time, but we had kind of said, the same person going to go for a while. I don't think you have to go that long, but you might want to make sure that whoever goes gets some of the pointers and the notes that I made, or I go the second time, and then whoever goes the next time, maybe we should let people go twice, because this was new for them, and they were putting something new in place, and it wasn't all there. So it was excellent what we did do, but it was still open, trying to figure out how they were going to do it. And so they were really appreciative, and so was I. because they're saying this was the first time. So I appreciate that opportunity, but we as a board didn't get the training, and it was because they wasn't ready to train us, because they were still putting things together. And it was a good session for 3 days. But I just wanted, I didn't say anything when they spoke last week, because I was waiting to see where it was going. So I just wanted to make sure that we all knew that this is a work in progress. And they're really trying to do a great job and asking a lot of questions, and I don't know if ultimately we would have a little bit more training than what they came before us with, but they still getting it together. And I just wanted to
Definitely thank you for keeping us abreast. And I am interested in some of your notation, things of that nature. I know with the Sunshine State Law, maybe we can get that information to Mike Schmidt, and maybe he can share it with us all via email.
Mr. Chair, I also have one more item that I would like to bring to light.
If you will, Mr.
This will
Valdez.
be more for the department. TICO put out a statement earlier this month about the street lights, that they've changed certain bulbs and they've turned purple due to defective bulbs. Is the department doing anything more so in our low-income areas where we can assist the families to call and report? TICO said that the best way to go about reporting the lights in the community is by going online and entering a 10-digit light pole number. But for our families that don't have the resources to internet or anything like that, is there something that the officers can do that if they do see a light bulb that's purple in order to increase visibility, that they can report?
If you will, Captain Schoolmeister.
Again, Captain Schoolmeister Professional Standards Bureau. TICO, that's its own private company or public traded utility company, but that's something I can discuss. But they can do that, and I'm sure there's a number they can call as well if they don't have a computer to also report it. Because we do that in a lot of areas, high crime areas, is in the past, we have partnered with them to say, you know, there needs to be a street light here, or the bulbs, sometimes the bulbs go out and they're not reported. So I'll report back next time after I discuss it with, to make sure there's a system in place.
And again, not taking away from the phone calls, but I know some of our families don't have means for phone calls or internet. So definitely, you know, if we can do anything as a community, will be helpful. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr.
Stay
Valdez.
right there.
If you will, Captain, we still have one other question, Dr. Collins.
Just and even if we don't talk about it now, if we do it next month, there was some concerns with a lot of homeless people, a lot of homes that no one is living in, and I know TPD been doing an excellent job working with people in the community, but I was even asked the question, what kind of do not trespass sign is on the house? And they were saying it needs to be the one that they get through TPD. So maybe next month, if we could do that and explain to people so folks will know, because they say, what color is it? Is it the green one? Is it the, you know, and it was like a black and orange one or whatever. That would kind of be helpful to educate us, but I think it also educates.
Well, I can discuss it now. You know, my
Is that
time on
short? Okay.
patrol. If you own a private business or private residence, you can get in contact with us. There's an affidavit that you're giving the Tampa Police Department authority to enforce the trespass statutes on your property. Once they sign that, then we issue that green placard, which they put up as notice. So as an officer's driving around and he sees or she sees several people loitering in front of a business at late hours, or, you know, they can get out, they see that sign, so it gives the officer knowledge that he has authority or she has authority to enforce the trespass statute. Then, you know, they make contact, the officer get their name, and then they have the authority to issue the trespass. Because normally, if someone's trespassing on your property, you call us, we come out, but the owner of that property has to tell that individual, hey, I don't want you on our property anymore, you're being trespassed. We don't have that authority. But that affidavit that they sign with the Tampa Police Department gives us that authority.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. That's going to conclude item H under the agenda, CRB staff reports and business. We have already created a date for the next meeting. I'd like to take this opportunity to inform you all that I believe this is Ms. Mercer's last meeting with us. You're here to the end of the year. Okay, okay. great. And also, Ms. Wilcox will be moving forward within the new month. So look forward to seeing you next month as well. Other than that, any other final questions or statements or comments? The next meeting will be held the first Tuesday of the month of December 7th, 2021, here at 315 East Kennedy Boulevard, Tampa, Florida, 33602, third floor at 6 p.m. If you will, those that's going to participate in the holidays, enjoy your family and your friends and your neighbors. Remember those that aren't with us in the recent time frame that we've been going through with the epidemic. If you will, the Citizen Review Board is now adjourned.
This courtroom is, all right, George.
Perpetrated upon our community